Welcome inside this edition of Big Ten Today. I'm Rick Pizzo. Great show coming up for you over the next 60 minutes. Really excited to talk to Michigan Wolverine hockey star and Hobey Baker Award winner Adam Fantilli. Also, Bill Landis of OSU Rivals is with us. Everything you need to know heading into this weekend spring game in Columbus as Ohio State gets set for its annual spring showcase. But we begin with today's big story and the selection of Maryland's Diamond Miller by the Minnesota Lynx with the second overall pick in Monday's WNBA draft. Miller ties the second highest ever selection for a Big Ten player in that draft and should be an immediate factor for a Lynx team that needs a little bit of everything, which is exactly what Miller provided during her final season in College Park. Miller was joined in the first round by two other former Big Ten stars, Grace Berger of Indiana and Miller's former Maryland teammate, Abby Myers. Ohio State's Taylor Mikesell was taken early in the second round, as was Leah Brown of Michigan. And Iowa's Monica Sonano was the final Big Ten player chosen, going to the LA Sparks in round number 3. It was truly a life-changing moment for all those who heard their names called.
Maryland was a progress. Starting freshman year, thinking I was going to be a star. Yeah, no. It definitely took a progression, but, I think all the growing pains made me who I am today, and I'm super grateful for it. But just a lot of hard work and determination, and having a coach that's constantly attacking you to get better is something that helps you and motivates you to be who you can be. Sometimes in life, you don't want to stay in one place for too long, and I felt like that's what I was doing. If I stayed at Maryland, it would just be because I'm scared to take the next step. I'm not scared. Transitions are always scary, don't get me wrong, but I think I'm excited and ready for a new journey in life as well.
I knew the Fever were, interested, but you never know until draft night obviously happens. So, I wasn't getting my hopes up or anything like that. I was just keeping an open mind. But, I knew the Fever were a team that, obviously just, playing in Indiana for the past 5 years, the community is so special for me. The community is so excited about women's basketball. So I was really sad to leave Indiana, but now obviously I'm staying here. So I'm super grateful for that.
I am very excited to see that. My hometown and just my home has meant a lot to me. Just being close to home with Ohio State, it's meant so much to me to have my family in my backyard. So I'm very excited to be that close to home and have my family ties.
And let's get much more on what we saw Monday night at the WNBA draft. Women's basketball analyst Autumn Johnson is joining us from New York, where she was on hand to watch that draft take place. Autumn, let's start with Diamond Miller as the number 2 overall pick to Minnesota. As I mentioned, this is a team that has a lot of needs in a lot of different places. What is her role the second that she becomes a part of that roster?
Yeah, I think she's going to contribute right away. I mean, we've been saying all season long that Diamond Miller is pro ready. She's a 6'3" guard. She is the full package when you look at her, when you see her play. Just her size, athleticism, length, wingspan, and just quickness, I think sets her apart and makes her a tough matchup when she's coming into the WNBA. I mean, she's a player that just loves to get downhill. She has that clutch gene to her, incredible in transition. She can pull up at the drop of the dime and just cause a lot of problems also on the defensive end. So I think her quickness and just her finesse at the rim makes her stand out. But this is a team in Minnesota that lost a lot of legends like Sylvia Fowles, who just retired, and Maya Moore recently just announced her retirement. But I think it's going to be a bright future of what Minnesota is bringing. I think she's going to go and fit right alongside of Nafisa Collier and Ariel Powers, who's also a Big Ten player, former Big Ten player at Michigan State, and just like that dog mentality that all of those players have. I think Diamond Miller fits in their system. And, we all knew Aaliyah Boston was going to go number 1, and there was no doubt that Diamond Miller was best available at number 2. I think this was such an incredible move by Minnesota, highest draft pick, as you mentioned, and very well deserved. Excited to see her shine.
And the fitting in with the team. Obviously, Miller had to do a lot of leadership with a lot of new parts on that Maryland team a year ago. That should help the transition as well. Grace Berger, the second Big Ten player taken. She goes 7th overall to the Indiana Fever. What is Berger's appeal at the next level?
Ooh, I mean, what isn't her appeal? I mean, just her versatility, her strength, her IQ, her ability to facilitate for her team. And also Indiana's a team that's defensive minded. So she has that to her bag as well. But, I love her mid-range game. And she mentioned last night that she's going to take it with her, but also just provide whatever her team needs for her. Her leadership is what, makes her great and makes her teammates shine as well. So I know she's hungry going into this Indiana Fever team, who's a very young team. I was looking at their roster, and there's like a lot of players on their team that's like 1999 or 2000 babies. You know what I mean? So just coming in, having that familiarity with a lot of players that were just playing collegiate ball in her shoes. She's going to join Aaliyah Boston as well, and such an incredible draft class that's headed there. But she mentioned those home games. I mean, she's going to draw a lot of attention with fans, the community, teammates, her coach, Terry Morin, who was a big cheerleader that night. But 5 years at Indiana, I'm excited to see, her stay in Indiana.
Third Big Ten player taken in the first round is Miller's former Maryland teammate, Abby Myers. Maybe your pick or two higher than most mock drafts had Myers going. She was widely considered probably an early to mid second round pick. Why do you think Dallas decided to take Myers late in the first round?
Well, they needed perimeter shooting, and they've made that clear all offseason long, just seeing how last season went. But they wanted to improve from the wing. So getting Abby Myers wasn't too much a surprise for me. She's second in scoring behind Diamond Miller when we watched her this season. She has such a great ability to hit the three at any given point. Her range is incredible. She's 38% from three, and she was a huge piece in Maryland's Elite Eight run. But of course, they ran into a tough South Carolina team. But I'm really excited to see her play in the backcourt with a player like Arike Gumbawale and also Diamond DeShields, who they picked up during the offseason. But this is a player who also takes pride in defense as well. So, I'm excited to see her be this two-way player for Dallas. And it was fun watching her play her last ride at Maryland, but I know a lot is in her future that she's going to be able to bound to accomplish.
Just 2 picks later, it's Taylor Mikesell off the board, one of the first players taken in round number 2. She joins Berger with the Indiana Fever, and obviously, as we've discussed, a great fan base and a great place to play your basketball. What do you like about Mikesell's game at the WNBA level?
Yeah, what's not to like? I mean, she led Ohio State in scoring. She's 41% from three when we watched her play this past season, 43% from the floor, but she's just a three-point assassin. I mean, we talk about that three-point shooting all day long, but I love the fact that she also added a floater to her game this past season, that was able to help her get in the mid-range and just get downhill, get higher percentage shots for her team. But then also what stands out about Taylor is she also turned up her defense this season, playing under Coach McGuff for the second year. And she was tasked of putting pressure on the guards whenever, the ball was passed in and that front line of defense was coming in, creating pressure. So I love the fact that she's going to take those skills going into the WNBA. But as I mentioned, another young roster for this Indiana Fever team. I'm excited to see how it all pans out, and just having that comfortability of being around players that are the same age as you and same situation, being in the same shoes. I think she'll be just fine.
Leah Brown of Michigan was considered by many to be a potential first-round pick. She actually goes in round 2, 15th overall to the Atlanta Dream. We know she's physical. She has that combination of size and strength. How WNBA ready is her game?
So ready. And she's expanded her game, as you mentioned, just also switching out of position. Like, this was a wing player who led her team as their floor general this past season for Michigan. She was running the point. She was able to facilitate for her teammate. She was able to expand her game as a ball handler. And I don't necessarily think that will be, her assignment when she comes to Atlanta Dream. But I did think that helped her sharpen her facilitating and her quick decision making, things like that. But Atlanta Dream, they need scoring. They were the second worst in the WNBA last season. So I think Leah Brown fits perfectly in this mix. She scores at all 3 levels. She's a 6'1" guard. She can also post up down low. She's gritty, tough player, but Atlanta Dream's a team that also likes to run too and get out and push pace. She can run the floor, and she could also push the pace for the Atlanta Dream. But I'm really excited to see her in this new chapter because she's going to be reunited with Naz Hillman. How fun is that?
Yeah, tied for the highest pick in program history, coincidentally enough, with Naz Hillman. Lastly, Monica Czinano is the 6th and final Big Ten player off the board. She goes in the 3rd round to the LA Sparks. A lot of discussion about whether Czinano can play the way in the WNBA the way she did in college at her size. What's your take on her production level as an undersized post in the pros?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the size and also the physicality is definitely a difference when you look at the WNBA. And that's one of the hardest transitions when you're coming from a collegiate player to the next level. You know, Monica is a 6'3" player who's listed as a forward and also a center. You know, I think the way she counters that is with her ability to get in deep position. She doesn't use a dribble whenever she receives the ball. She uses her footwork to her advantage, but she's one of the most efficient players when it comes to finishing at the rim. She's also a very smart defender. She's very poised. She knows the size that she has to go up with against, but, you know, she's joining some tougher teammates too, like the the Agumake sisters, and also Azura Stevenson, who also is 6'3" and 6'2", but you're going to have to go up against players like, let's say, a Jonquel Jones, who's like 6'6". So when you talk about, you know, the size and physicality, yes, that could be an issue. But I think the way she counters it is with her high IQ. And when you talk about Iowa greatness, like, you just have to put Monica in that conversation. She will go down in history as one of the greats. And when you talk about a player like Megan Gustafson and also Caitlin Clark currently, you have to put Monica in that conversation. And it was just amazing to see her help her team to that championship run.
Great information and insight from Autumn Johnson, helping us recap the WNBA draft, where the Big Ten was well represented with 6 former players taken on Monday night. Autumn, we appreciate the time. I hope a well-deserved vacation is in your immediate future.
Oh, it is. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
It is time for today's big stat. And this past Friday, Michigan State baseball coach Jake Boss Jr. became just the 3rd Spartan headman ever to reach 400 wins in green and white. Been a steadying force in East Lansing since '09. Boss and the Spartans are off to a terrific start so far in 2023. And with that knowledge, we are excited to welcome head coach Jake Boss Jr. into today's edition of Big Ten Today. Coach, first and foremost, congratulations on the milestone win, and we appreciate you taking a few moments to join us today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Jake, let's start with number 400. I know I've spoken with Tom Izzo after some of his milestones, your basketball counterpart there in East Lansing, and he always says milestone wins only mean one thing. They mean I'm old. But in all reality, what did 400 mean to you?
You know, it is pretty special, Rick. I mean, I'm a local guy. I grew up here in East Lansing and been a Michigan State fan my whole life. And, you know, when I started this kind of journey, you know, however many years ago, 20 plus years ago, this was my dream job. This was the destination and the goal for me. And to be able to you know, have the same job that guys like Danny Litweiler and Tom Smith and John Cobes, you know, to have that same title is extremely humbling for me. I'm honored to be a part of it here, and you know, I think that 400 wins does mean a lot, you know, to me and to my family, and it's pretty special.
You know, Jake, it's interesting because when you reach a milestone, everybody would always love to do it at home. Now, officially, you did do it at home, but you didn't do it at your home stadium because of some flooding from the Red Cedar. You guys moved, had to play the game at the stadium of the Lansing Lugnuts. Was it a little weird to reach such a great milestone and do it, quote unquote, at home, but not in your own park?
Yeah, a little strange, Rick. It was, you know, we've played down there before several times in the past, and so we're fairly familiar with that place. But yeah, a little bit strange for sure. But you know, at the same time, it was a holiday weekend. You know, my oldest 2 kids were back in town, and our family was all together. So that was what was most important about it.
Absolutely. To be able to share it with the family had to be really special. Jake, let's talk about your team this year. Off to a very nice start. You've taken 2 out of 3 in each of your first 3 Big Ten series. What do you like the most about the overall makeup and the way this team is playing right now?
Well, our guys just, you know, they keep grinding, really. I mean, they just, you know, they don't ever get too high. They don't ever get too low. You know, I think the The attitude around the dugout is one of enthusiasm. These guys like to play. They love coming to the park every day. And like I said, I mean, they're able to shake one game from the next, win or lose. And so I think that mentality has been really beneficial for us. They're great kids. They work hard. They love Michigan State. And, it's been a lot of fun.
As we focus on a couple of guys individually, first baseman Brock Vredenberg leads the Big Ten in hitting. Last check, I think he was right around 410, 412. Now, he was solid last year as a soph. I think he hit 280, but that is a big-time bounce. Why has he gotten better each year on campus?
Well, he's really worked hard. It's been fun to watch his progression since really his senior year of high school. He didn't hit for a whole lot of power in high school, and it's just been gradually coming. He's really worked hard with our hitting coach Graham Sykes and our infield coach Andrew Stone, and has really started to be able to backspin some balls and hit for some power. And summer baseball has been really important for Brock. He's gone out and had 2 very, very good summers, and followed that up with a good fall. So it's just a guy that he's gotten a lot of at bats here in his time, and it's finally all starting to click and come together at one time for him. So, really happy for him. Again, another great kid, hard worker, and I think he deserves the success that he's having.
Another young man having a terrific season on the infield, Trent Farquhar. You could certainly say he's one of the rocks of this team. Now, he's always been an outstanding, one of the best middle infielders, not just in this conference, I would argue, in this country, but he's hitting .390 this year. That's top 5 in the Big Ten. What's behind the improvement at the dish?
Well, again, another great kid, another really hard worker, and another guy that's had a lot of at bats here at the collegiate level. And he's played a lot of games for us here. I think the biggest adjustment that he's made from a year ago, he's not striking out maybe as much as he did in the past, and putting the ball in play. He's had a great approach at the plate. He's a coach's son, so he's grown up around the game his entire life, and has a different perspective, but very mature player, both on and off the field, and has a really mature approach at the plate. And it's one that, again, that he's able to separate one at bat from the next, and really, if an at bat doesn't go well, he's able to kind of learn from that, while also helping the guy behind him and understanding what kind of pitches he's seen and the way he's been pitched to, and real student of the game for sure.
I know that a baseball cliche that sometimes rings very true is that hitting is contagious, and it's not just those 2 guys. You have at least 3 others right now: Sam Bush, Brian Brecker, Dylan Clark, all above 300. Is that starting to filter down 1 through 9 in the lineup, where the guys in the middle start to get confident and suddenly everybody has that same confidence stepping to the plate?
Yeah, I think so, Rick. I think, last weekend and maybe the weekend before, I think were 2 great examples where, maybe the guys at the top of the order struggled in one game, but the guys at the bottom were able to kind of pick them up a little bit. And, the guys in the middle, maybe have a good day, while the guys at the top and the bottom maybe are struggling. And so it's been really somebody different, almost every day for us. The guys like Brock and Trent, like you said, Sam Bush and Mitch Jebb have all been fairly consistent, but you need help from 1 through 9, and if you're going to be successful, and so far we've been fortunate to have that.
From a pitching perspective, Joseph Jurwa was just named the Big Ten Freshman of the Week. He was the starter. 4-win, number 400 for you on Friday night. He's had a really solid start to his college career. What do you like?
Well, Joseph throws a lot of strikes, and nothing really phases him. He came in the second inning of the first game of the year against Michigan, of all people, out in Arizona, and he came in relief, and he's been the Friday guy ever since. He fills up the strike zone. He's got multiple pitches for strikes. He's not easily rattled. He kind of takes everything in stride. He's, it's been fun to watch him kind of come out of his shell as a freshman since school began here. But he's a confident kid, and he attacks the strike zone, and that's why he's having so much success.
Coach, you see it year in and year out in this league. As we get late into April and certainly into May, rotations really start to get taxed, and pitching becomes sometimes a little bit of a grind. What would you like to see from your starting rotation over the next couple of weeks as you start to get into May to make you feel more and more confident about the postseason abilities of this team?
Yeah, a little bit of consistency. I think Nick Powers has done a nice job. He had a tough start to the year and has thrown well the last couple weekends. And that Saturday spot has been kind of a revolving door right now for us. And we need to get some consistency, I think, out of that spot. And I think that'll help shore some things up with the bullpen and get it to Wyatt Rush, who's been our closer, for the last month and a half, I guess. And so if we can consistently have somebody come in and throw strikes and locate in the strike zone and kind of settle in on that Saturday roll, we feel pretty good about where we're at.
How do you feel about your team's ability to close out leads right now? Because you've built a lot of leads, and Wyatt, since he stepped into that closer role, he has a win and 6 saves and 12 appearances. He's averaging more than a strikeout per inning right now.
Yeah, Wyatt's kind of the heart and soul of the pitching staff. Again, another guy that's played a lot of baseball and a lot of baseball here at Michigan State, and he kind of makes that staff go. He's the energy behind those guys, and tremendous young man, a tremendous worker. And again, he's gotten the most out of his ability. He's a guy that understands now more so than ever what kind of pitcher he is and what he needs to do to get guys out. And it's again fun to watch him have the success that he's having as well. I think he's another one that really deserves it.
Jake, I want to finish with one non-baseball related question. You brought up the fact that this was your dream job. This is your hometown. We all still feel for everyone that was affected by the shootings on campus of a couple of months ago. Where is the campus life, students, guys like yourself, in terms of returning to normalcy while obviously never forgetting what happened?
Yeah, and I think you just said it, Rick. I think we're getting closer, probably a little bit more every day, but I think it's also important to not forget what happened and remember those students that lost their lives and remember those students that were injured. And, we certainly try to do that. We talk about that a lot with our guys. I think, we were one of the first teams that had an opportunity to go out and play after that incident happened here on campus. And, you could kind of collectively feel a big sigh and a big, kind of exhale, I guess, as we were, as the game just kind of continued. And so I think, we understand kind of what the healing process takes, I guess, and the kind of the role we might be able to have as far as that healing process is concerned around campus. Again, I think every day you get a little bit closer to normal, but when it hits so close to home like that, I don't know if you can ever go back to normal, and and maybe that's okay. Maybe I think it's going to be important to remember those people, and it's going to be important to remember what happened and pay honor and tribute to those people that were so deeply affected by that incident. And so, our role as a baseball team, again, if we can aid in that process and assist in that process, we're honored to do it. Our guys as a group, we're pretty shaken after the incident, but at the same time, we were able to kind of come together, and once we got on the road, it was, I think, very therapeutic for our guys. So I appreciate you asking the question. I think, with every day, you get a little bit closer to, to healing. But, again, I don't think it's something that you ever fully recover from.
Really well said, and a great perspective from a guy who knows that community as well as anyone. Michigan State baseball coach Jake Boss Jr. Jake, truly appreciate the time today, your thoughts as well. Congrats again on win number 400, and good luck to you and the rest of the team throughout the course of the rest of the Big Ten baseball season.
Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it.
The All Big Ten affair at the Hobie Baker Award presentation, ultimately owned by Michigan freshman Adam Fantilli. The Wolverine star outbidding Minnesota teammates Logan Cooley and Matthew Nyes for college hockey's top honor after a year in which Fantilli led the nation in scoring and helped lead Michigan back to the Frozen Four. It is time for today's big interview. As you may have guessed, our guest is Michigan's Adam Fantilli, who joins us now from Ann Arbor. Hey, Adam, we have to start with the Hobie. What did it feel like the moment that you realized the name Adam Fantilli was coming out of the mouth of the person announcing the year's Hobie Baker Award winner?
I don't even know. It was really suspenseful. They had the whole envelope out. I had to wait for him to open that. They were giving out plenty of other awards. So it was really suspenseful. I know everybody, all three of us in those chairs were sweating. But yeah, I was super ecstatic when I heard my name called. Extremely honored that it's such a prestigious award that putting my name in that kind of list is something that means a lot to me. So I'm really grateful for it.
Sitting next to, as I mentioned, Logan Cooley and Matthew Nyes. And it was really interesting because the argument throughout the course of the year in all of college hockey was which team has the best top line. And the argument always came down to their line and the line that you were on with Michigan. I'm curious, throughout the course of the year, did you guys keep an eye on them even when you weren't playing them? Because I spoke with Logan last week, and he admitted that he and Matthew Nyes and Jimmy Snuggerud did always keep an eye on what you guys were doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to not see what they're doing, to be honest with you. It's always getting posted. They're getting 5-point nights here, 4-point nights there. So it would always be like on Instagram or on the news or whatever it is. So we would definitely see it. And especially gearing up to play against them, we always wanted to be matched against that line. So we could do our best against them. So going into those weekends, we would pre-scout and watch as much as we could. They're obviously three dangerous players all over the ice, so watching and learning as much as you can from those guys to try and play your best against them is something we had to do throughout the season. I don't know if we were watching stats, but we would definitely see a lot of the success they were having.
I know that you would have loved to have been in that position that they were in on Friday night getting ready for the national championship game, but you did get back to the Frozen Four. An outstanding season. You beat Minnesota in the Big Ten tournament championship game. How do you reflect back on what this year was for Michigan hockey?
Yeah, it was a really special year. I mean, there's so many amazing guys in that locker room. They're all amazing guys. I mean, the upperclassmen brought us in as freshmen so seamlessly, and it felt like we were family right away. Trying to do as much as you can for those seniors and for the guys not coming back was something that was a big goal of ours. So trying to make sure we'd accomplish as much as we could. Obviously, we fell short towards the end. It's disappointing, but we did everything we could to try and make this the most memorable season we could for those guys, and I think we did a decently good job.
I love to hear you talking about that family feeling and atmosphere, because I know you were quoted as saying this was the tightest team that you had ever been on at any point throughout your college hockey career. So what did that look like? What did that feel like, whether it was in the locker room or through those grind days of practice, especially late in the season?
Yeah, I think we stuck together through everything, whether we had a bad game and we knew we were going to have to hear it from coach. Like our leadership group would stand up and be like, whatever comes in and happens, you stick together, you have each other's back, and even in situations where we're off the ice, like our off-season training and all our testing and stuff like that, just everybody's encouraging each other to do the best they can. And in the dog days, I think we were as tight a team as anybody's ever seen, and the tightest team I've ever played on. I absolutely, truly mean that. And it's such a tribute to our seniors and our upperclassmen and how well they did how well of a job they did bringing us all in like that.
You mentioned coach, that coach being Brandon Naurato, who coached for most of this year with the interim tag and was lifted right before the Frozen, but he didn't even know he was going to coach this team in that role until August. Had to quickly get a new system installed, had to get assistants on the bench, had to get everybody on the same page. What's the best way to describe the job that Coach Naurato did this year?
It was definitely a difficult task for him. I mean, like it's no easy job to step into a program like Michigan and have to hire an assistant and hire support staff and implement your system and implement your style of play, and all while trying to get 12 freshmen acclimated to the team culture. It was a tough task, and he handled it with such grace. He did such a good job. Obviously, it's his first time being a head coach. There's going to be learning curves, but I think by Christmas he was coaching us like a 20-year vet. I mean, he was so good at getting what he needed out of us and getting us to implement what he wanted in games and in practices. So I can't say enough great things about how he coached us and how well he did. Even with the pressure of being on an interim tag, it was phenomenal.
He certainly talks about you in the same light, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well. He describes you as being one of the most humble superstars that he's ever seen. And with that in mind, I'm wondering how hard it is for you to hear your teammates talk about you in the way that they have, because You have Dylan Duke, who says you're the best player he's ever played with. And, of course, he was on the team last year that saw 3 guys go in the first 5 picks of the NHL draft with Power, Beniers, and Kent Johnson. Gavin Brindley describes you as a, quote, generational talent. Are you still uncomfortable with hearing your buddies and teammates talk about you like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit weird. I appreciate it so much, and I respect everything that those guys do on and off the ice more than they know. That every single guy that you just named works so hard, and nothing that we accomplished this year would have been able to been possible without them. So it was like to hear them talk about me in that manner and in that light is an honor. It feels amazing, but behind closed doors, they definitely give it to me. They're a little bit nicer to you guys, so it's good to hear them talk like that sometimes.
Hey, trust me, anybody that's ever been inside of a hockey locker room knows that there is no true love like absolutely railing on your teammates and making sure that you give them the business from time to time, especially after when they have really good games. One of your teammates who we know won't be there next year is Luke Hughes. No surprise that he's obviously already signed his NHL deal, a guy who many believe will be a long-time all-star defenseman at the next level. Listen, it's hard to get used to, right? But how much of that is simply the business of college hockey these days?
Yeah, I mean, especially at a program like Michigan, that's something you expect. You don't expect everybody to stay for 4 years here. I think that's what happens when you have high talent like Hughesy come in. You got high talent like Mackey, Beniers, Johnson, and Power. Guys like that you don't expect to stay 4 years. So it's part of the business, and it's part of playing at Michigan, right? And to see what Hughesy's doing and what he did this year and what he's going to accomplish in the NHL is going to be amazing. He's a phenomenal hockey player. He's probably the best defenseman I've ever played with. He's such a superstar in the way he approaches the game and the way he plays it with such skill, grace, and it's artwork to watch, to be honest with you. I can't say enough great things about him and his family and what they've done for me. So I'm so excited to see what he's going to accomplish.
And all those guys we just talked about were high draft picks at the NHL, and that's where we'll finish this conversation because you are widely expected to be the number 2 pick in this summer's NHL draft. With everything that's been going on, and I know you're still finishing classes in the second semester of your freshman year there in Ann Arbor, how much have you had a chance to actually think about what takes place this summer at the NHL draft?
Not a lot. It's nothing new, though. I mean, I try to keep it out of my mind as much as possible. I think my teammates and coaches and the people around me did a really good job of keeping it out of our locker room and keeping it out of our heads, because I know Gavin's going to the draft too. Hopefully he's, in my opinion, that guy should be a super high first-round pick too. But you obviously don't know what's going to happen that day, and you can't control it, so there's no sense in stressing about it and thinking about it. So we're just going to let the cards fall where they may. I know that's the way Gavin's feeling right now too. So yeah, the only thing I can talk about is how well they did a good job of keeping it out of our heads.
Fantastic to catch up with Michigan freshman and Hobey Baker Award winner Adam Fantilli. Adam, congratulations on an outstanding freshman year. Can't wait to see what the future holds for you, including this summer's NHL draft. Really appreciate you taking some time to join us here on the Big Ten Network.
Thank you so much for having me.
I know it comes as a shock, but Ohio State had one of the best recruiting classes in the country this past year, number 5 overall. That's actually probably surprising it's lower than we've seen the last couple of years. That, of course, according to 24/7 Sports. Some notable transfers, especially on the back end defensively. Davis Igbinosun comes from Ole Miss. Jahad Carter from Syracuse. Tristan Gebbia, the veteran quarterback, comes from Oregon State. He is not expected to be the guy to take over for C.J. Stroud, but certainly wants to put himself in the mix. Jackson Smith and Jigba, a couple of important offensive linemen, also need to be replaced this coming year in Columbus. And for all things Ohio State football, just a few days ahead of the Buckeyes spring game, welcome in Bill Landis of OhioStateRivals.com. Hey, Bill, it is the topic of conversation, not just in Columbus and Big Ten football, but a lot of college football. Who replaces C.J. Stroud? So the question is, how solidly entrenched is Kyle McCord as the assumed starter? And what are you hearing? What should we know about both Gebbia and the youngster Devin Brown?
Yeah, I think it's probably fair to assume that Kyle McCord at least has a little bit of a leg up. He's been in the program for 1 year longer than Devin Brown. He does have a start under his belt. He started back in 2021 against Akron in a game where C.J. Stroud was nursing a little bit of a shoulder injury. So he just has more years in the program, more knowledge of the offense. He's a bigger, stronger college athlete because he's been in the weight program longer. And when you go out and watch him at practice, you do see that. I think Kyle is probably a little more consistent than Devin right now, but the thing that Devin has, which is a bit of an X factor, and I think frankly is a little hard sometimes to showcase in practice settings, is an athleticism that I think can be a game changer. And I'm curious if we get to see any of that during the spring game on Saturday, and how much Ryan Day kind of lets those guys cut it loose. Obviously, you want to be smart and protect them, and they're not going to get hit. But are there ways that they can create situations where Devin can showcase that athleticism a little bit, and maybe show something, or an area where he's maybe a little better than Kyle McCord? I think if you ask anybody in Columbus, or most people in Columbus at this point, I think many of us are anticipating that it'll be Kyle. And Ryan Day has said that he would like to have an idea of who the starter is going to be at the conclusion of spring practice. We'll see if that happens. I expect it to kind of carry through into the summer and into fall camp. My bet would be on Kyle right now as well, but there's a lot of time, and Devin is a good player, close to a 5-star prospect in his own right. So he has all the talent to start for the Buckeyes. I think that's the biggest thing. They have two guys that I think no matter who they pick, they can start. And then you add a guy like Tristan Gebbia into the mix, who's not really competing for that starting job, but does help them with experience. He's played in the Pac-12. He's played in the Big Ten. He's played in some pretty big games. He's got starts under his belt. He's 25 years old, which is a really old for a college football player. His position coach, Corey Dennis, is 30. So they're almost the same age. It's kind of crazy to see a guy that old still playing college football. But Ohio State needed an infusion of just perspective, I think, in that room, and Tristan gives them that.
Bill, my understanding is physicality will be heavily limited, not just with the quarterbacks. What does that mean for what we see from the running backs? Is there anybody we should keep an eye out for other than the known commodities?
Yeah, well, the no commodities haven't been practicing this spring. Trevion Henderson is coming off a broken foot, and he has not done any competitive stuff, just individual drills. He won't play on Saturday. Mayan Williams has been in a non-contact jersey for the back half of spring. I don't suspect that he'll play. Evan Pryor is a guy who's going to be in his third year, who's coming off an ACL injury. He's not going to play either. So it's really down to Dallin Hayden, who played a lot last year as a true freshman, and Chip Trainum, who came to Ohio State last offseason as a transfer from Arizona State with the idea that he'd be playing linebacker, and then by the end of the year he was playing running back and taking meaningful carries in the game against Michigan. So Dallin Hayden and Chip Trainum are the two guys you'll probably see a fair amount of on Saturday. They both bring a lot to the table. Chip is pretty fat. He's 230 pounds with really good speed. Dallin's got incredible vision, maybe the best vision of anyone in Ohio State's room. Obviously, Trevion Henderson and Maya Williams are well-established college players and productive guys, and are probably in line to be the top two come the fall, but they're not ready just yet. So it's Dallin and Chip who are trying to make the most of these opportunities and throw themselves into the conversation to see who can get that first carry when Ohio State plays Indiana.
Bill, the best returning receiver in the country is in Scarlet and Gray and Marvin Harrison. But over the last 2 years, not just last year, this program has seen so many top-end wide receivers move on. How much reliance at wideout will there be on guys like whether it's Carnell Tate or other youngsters to kind of come in and be immediate impacts on the other side of Marvin Harrison?
I suppose there was a bit of a silver lining in the situation with Jackson Smith and Jigba last year, and the fact that he basically didn't play. So they had to adapt without him last year. They're not trying to adapt without him now. So Emeka Ibuka played a ton last year and was a 1,000-yard receiver. Julian Fleming played a whole lot last year. Even a guy like Xavier Johnson, who's a former walk-on, kind of emerged by the end of the year as a playmaker for the offense. All those guys are back. Marvin Harrison Jr. is obviously back. So it is a little hard to find an opening for a younger player to emerge and help at receiver. If you were going to pick one, I think Carnell Tate is probably the right guy to pick. He's a 5-star prospect. So that's what Brian Hartline does. He brings in 5-star guys every year. But Carnell has seemed to maybe kind of risen above the rest of that secondary group. Right now, they do a thing at Ohio State where a player loses the black stripe off of his helmet when they're kind of doing all the things on and off the field that it takes to be considered like a real Buckeye. And Carnell lost his very early in spring football. That's not something that happens a whole lot for a true freshman who's early enrolled, and Carnell has done that. He makes a ton of plays when we watch him at practice. He's a big kid. He's got good speed. again, I think opportunities could be limited with what all they have coming back, but Carnell has as good a chance and probably the best chance of anyone to make an early impact as a freshman.
Up front, Paris Johnson, DeJuan Jones, Luke Whippler, all gone from that offensive line. Yet it seems like Ryan Day has kind of had a plan in place. He seems pretty confident about the makeup of that group. So what is still to be determined on the O-line?
They have competitions at center and right tackle. They are replacing their left tackle, Paris Johnson, as you said, but it sounds like Josh Fryer, who was a guy who played a little guard last year, a little right tackle, was a jumbo tight end at times. He had a start against Indiana, played basically the entire game against Michigan at guard. He's going to step up and then move over to the left side and play left tackle. That's what it sounds like the plan is. He's had a pretty good spring. They feel good about that spot. It's the other tackle spot that I think maybe they're most concerned about. Replacing DeJuan Jones with maybe a guy like Zen Mohalski, who's in his third year in the program, has not played a whole lot, or Tegra Shabola, who's a second-year player who was a second-team guard last year, which was kind of surprising and I think was a sign of good things to come for him, but taking on the starting right tackle job is a totally different animal, and those guys have been battling out all spring. They have good days and bad days. I think it's mildly concerning that no one has really taken that job and run with it just yet. It's potentially a spot that Ohio State could look at in the transfer portal if an obvious kind of upgrade presents itself. That's no guarantee. For now, it's either one of those two guys, Zen Mohalski or Tegra Shabola at right tackle, and then at center, it's Carson Hinsman, another second-year player who did not play any snaps last year, or Vic Cutler, a transfer from Louisiana Monroe, who was a tackle for that program last year, has played a little bit of center. They like his athleticism. He's got some versatility on the interior, but he's not played at this level either. So there's confidence, I think, that there's enough time between now and when the season starts that they can find a five that they feel really good about. But I don't think either of those two spots, right tackle or center, are nearly settled just yet.
Bill, defensively, the secondary sees the two highest profile transfer guys come in on the defensive end. Davison Igbinosun, Jihad Carter, both have had solid college careers already. How do they kind of change that game plan? Knowles likes to really set it up from back to front.
Yeah, we'll see with Jihad Carter. They liked his versatility coming out of Syracuse. He played in a similar system. He played all three safety positions at Syracuse. The idea is that he could play all three of the safety positions at Ohio State, but he kind of tweaked his knee about a week and a half ago at practice. It doesn't sound like it's anything serious, but we were out there last Friday. He was kind of off to the side working out with the injured guys, and I can't imagine that they'll bring him back to try to play in the spring game. So he's got to get over that and then kind of fight his way, I guess, toward the top of the depth chart. At which spot, I'm not sure, but I think it's good just sort of at a base level to have a guy that could potentially play all three of the safety positions. And then Davison Igbinosun just physically brings something different to their cornerback room. He's 6'2". He's really long. He reminds you a little bit of Jeff Okuda, but he honestly is probably a little bit bigger just from a physical standpoint. Had a pretty productive season at Ole Miss as a true freshman. I think he landed on a couple of like all freshman teams nationally. So he definitely provided a little bit of spark for that defense last year. And I think the idea with him is he's going to come in and one, be a productive player, but two, I just think up the competition level at the cornerback position, which is something that Ohio State needs, because that's a spot that the level to which it struggled last year was probably a little bit overstated, but it wasn't the best year for that group, and it really hasn't been what you come to expect of Ohio State's cornerbacks probably for 2 or 3 years now, and they're trying to get that back where they're just routinely churning out first-round draft picks and having guys that are first-team All-Big Ten and challenging for All-American spots. And I'm not saying Davidson's going to do that in his first year at Ohio State, but I think you stick him in that room now and everyone's game kind of gets elevated because of that, and we'll see if that makes it back into the defense better than it was last year.
All right, Bill, last one for you. Got about 30, 45 seconds here. I do want to touch on Jack Sawyer. He was an impact a year ago as a combo linebacker rush end. This year, I understand he's going strictly to that defensive end rush position. What's the buzz and ceiling on Sawyer?
That he's comfortable now. He's a former 5-star guy, and when you're that at Ohio State at the defensive end position, you automatically get compared to the Boses and Chase Young, and when your production doesn't match up immediately, people start to question why that's the case. And I think Jack expected a big jump for himself last year as a sophomore. It didn't come when he was kind of stuck between two positions. Now that he can focus on that one position, I think the idea is that they'll get the best version of him, and that is a guy who brings a lot of speed and power to the edge and would be a strong complement, I think, opposite JT Tuimoloau.
Great stuff from Bill Landis of OhioStateRivals.com. Bill, we appreciate the time. Enjoy the game this weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.